Conor, energy storage is a key theme here at Enlit. What's going on with energy storage these days?
Well, energy storage, Kevin, is very important for the energy transition that everyone's talking about these days. In essence, energy storage is taking energy that's already been generated and storing it for use at a more expedient time, either whether it's a technically or commercial advantage to do so. So the first thing I would say on energy storage is, very simply, the sun doesn't always shine, and the wind doesn't always blow, on a very, very basic level. So what energy storage does is it provides the facility to onboard the renewables and the renewable energy transition that we're talking about. Okay, so what energy storage is really is it provides that resiliency and energy independence to people. So to give you an example of some of the really important aspects of energy storage and what it does, it really provides, well, number one, it provides renewable generation, or provides the facility for renewable generation, what makes this, renewable generation is actually the cheapest form of generation, and that's because of energy storage.
Yep.
And it provides some very key technical and commercial advantages to the grid. And some things like, for example, peak shaving. Some people would have heard of peak shaving, and maybe heard of it but not understood it. And basically, any utility who generates energy, has to actually charge the end customer based upon the peak, not upon the average. So if you even just for 1 second have a really big peak in your usage, you pay for the high end. So what energy storage allows you to do is when those peaks come around, you take the energy from the storage and it flattens out that to an average cost, which reduces the cost of energy for everybody. It's a very, very important facet. And I'd say the second thing is around the area of, say, EV charging. As we're going to get all these cars coming online, they're all probably going to start charging at the same time during the day. Not exactly the same time, but in a window. And you can think about all the power that's required from the grid to provide these fast charges at similarly the same time. It's going to put a lot of stress on the grid. And if you have energy storage co-located with EV charging, fast chargers, it ameliorates all that line again. Yeah.
Now, if I may, I suppose we've been chatting about energy storage for a couple of years. What's the current state of play? What's really happening out there, and where do you see this developing?
Well, I'd say that where I'd say it is energy storage is in a number of different areas. It's not just one thing, which is like a lot of people just think of it as the big container ship. We've kind of been talking about that, the grid. So we talked about the grid, but what I'd like to talk a little bit more about is, that it goes into other areas like the home energy storage. So you see a lot of people doing these home energy management systems. There's a huge surge in them at the moment because of people wanting energy independence and seeing about the cost of energy. People don't want to be beholden to these sudden inflationary issues in their energy. So that has been proving, especially in Europe, that actually is becoming a really big thing. So we see a lot of home energy storage systems. Other big ones are this whole idea of the virtual private networks. So this whole idea of having sort of smaller rack-based community, commercial and industrial type of energy storage as well. So for backups and microgrids for factories, to be able people to be able to store their own power and resell it in factories. So and for data centers, for example. So CCI is a very important segment, a very fast-growing one actually that's happening out there. And finally, I would say we're seeing big things around the electrification of work. Forklifts, robots, trains, marine, all actually coming into that. And finally, uninterruptible power supplies are moving from lead acid into lithium ion, particularly for the backup of critical infrastructure, mission critical stuff like you can think of it right, nuclear power plants, things like data centers, telecom infrastructure, semiconductor fabs as well. Is another one. Yeah.
And if I may, so analog devices, where does analog play in energy storage?
Well, analog plays in energy storage let's go back a little bit. Since 2009, we've been providing battery management systems. So batteries have to be managed, particularly lithium-ion batteries. They have to be managed. So because you need to understand the state of health of the batteries, you understand the state of charge of the batteries.
Yep.
Anyone who's owned an iPhone will realize that after 2 years, it's not 100%, right? And it's it need to be safe. We need to look at them for longevity. We need to mine them for longevity, particularly on storage, more so than actually cars.
Yep.
Cars after 5 or 7 years, okay, most people have renewed their car, but these energy storage systems need to be in place for 20 years. So it's a very different use profile. And analog is playing in the area of battery management systems. We're on our 7th generation of battery management systems now, which is the most than anybody. So we keep really investing in this technology, not just for energy storage, but also for electric vehicles. So we're in both of those the key areas. And we also are leaders in isolation technology. So, if you've got 1500 volts on the grid, you really need to isolate all these cell monitoring modules from each other, so that's really important. And to be able to isolate also the communications between all the cell monitors and the master controllers as well, and be able to get all that information from each cell, because it could be 16 cells in a module, multiplied by 30 or something like that, and all the system, be able to get all that across the isolated transformers into the control module to do your algorithms and understand your state of health, state of charge. So all that is very, very important. And we bring all the technology there that brings
So all of the stuff that's under the covers that people they see
don't
energy
see
storage,
yeah.
but they don't see it.
They don't see all that. Yeah.
Hey, good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kevin.